Just be patient with it. You know what? We're ready to add.
I got 6. How did you know? Wait, we had 3 kills so
Fix me up, dude.
Happy?
Yes.
Why is it tilted?
And then make it as big as you can without going into the. Without going in. Here, let me shift this thing so that they can see without me blocking the screen. So can we do it so that it's a little over here? Yeah.
You're kidding.
ايه اللي حصل؟ شو
Do you
وقته
have your
عم؟
own laptop?
I do, but I don't have a unless you have a converter.
What is it?
I think it's just US USB.
No.
I don't have anything. It's literally nothing. It's tablet style.
It's a joke. No, this is one. Let me see.
كتر خيرك. Amir. Low battery. Hi everyone. How are you? Nice to see you guys here. Last week there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tables. This week we've lost 2 tables. Next week we're going to lose 2 more tables. We need to grow tables, not lose tables. So remind your friends hopefully next week that whoever wasn't able to attend this week can make it next week. Yeah, you deal with it here in the back. And then take this and get me servant's characteristics -1.
Have a sound thing or no?
He's connected me straight. No, I don't need sound. Where's the clip? Where's the USB stick?
After I put it in.
Oh yeah, sorry. So last week we covered, what did we cover last week? Tell me, yeah, please. We have technical difficulties anyway, so we're trying to fill some void here.
We covered, oh my god, I can't read my right. Oh, characteristics of a servant.
Perfect. So we got, I was in more of an introduction on service and the characteristics of a servant, and I think George also covered a specific story. Does anybody remember what we talked about last week? And
his servant finding him a wife.
Fantastic. And what were the character traits that we highlighted last week?
Giving God the glory.
Giving God the glory.
Dependable and trustworthy.
Yeah.
Anonymous and humble.
Equipped.
Being humble. Prayerful.
Prayerful.
Dedicated.
Dedicated. Wow, you covered a lot.
Dedicated.
Okay, today we're not going to cover as many characteristics, but hopefully we go into a little bit more depth on 3 specific characteristics. Hey, Rafi. How are you, buddy? But before we do that, this is something that I came across recently and I thought was extremely helpful for my spiritual life and myself. And I never got a chance to do this at your age. And I think if we start implementing this at a younger age, it's something that's going to get ingrained in our spiritual lives a lot easier, and it's extremely useful for us to look at ourselves in a bit of an analytical approach and do a self-assessment on where we are. We do self-assessments at work. You guys, maybe not yet, but maybe at school, you guys might be doing self-assessment. How do you compare where you are in a specific class or amongst your peers, or even when you apply for university, which I'm sure some of you have done or are about to do that. The whole process of applying is a bit of an assessment of yourself in comparison to everyone else that's applying. Spiritual life is similar, right? We need to assess ourselves regularly and to know where we are strong and where we're weak, and where we need to focus on and where we need to apply more of an effort to grow. So I'm going to pass this around. Take 5 minutes to read through the questions. They are not difficult questions, something that you can probably fill out in 5 or 10 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to just read my notes. Anybody need extra pens? Extra paper? Yeah. Anybody got an extra paper? Extra paper? Yeah. Here you go. Extra paper. Anybody short one? Yeah. Oh, before you start, please put your names. You're going to keep it. Put your names at the top and date it. Yeah.
لو أنا مش فاكر أكتب إيميل
20
1999
وشو XX وشوف بقى. Yes, it's the 13th. Somebody, she needs another pen. If there's I'll just leave them here.
This paper's kind of bougie.
Bougie. That's,
Was this printed at the office?
yes, it was.
5-star?
Yeah, this paper's so nice.
Abuna? You need to open the pen. That's part of the process.
What if you don't remember?
I don't remember. زيادة لو في واحد حتى دخل. Anybody need extra pens?
No, mine. What if you don't remember what exactly? Actually, yeah.
Approximate. 2 to 3 months, 6 months, a decade, a few weeks, sure.
I haven't done it a lot.
It's like what typing.
Donating
Oh,
money.
more than 4 years now.
I don't know when I left. Are you tired? You see, I'm not even working.
I'm just gonna put no because I probably have.
You got 7 minutes. 2 pages, yeah. It's اكتب يا ابني اكتب.
Like this? Areas in assessment?
Right, because like what areas in this is nothing. What is challenging? What's the question? Are we handing these?
No, you're gonna keep them, and you're gonna get another one in maybe towards the end of the year or beginning of the new year, and we're gonna hopefully compare and cross-reference what you wrote previously. No, we're not gonna collect. You're gonna keep them in your notebooks or anywhere else you want to keep them, and we're gonna give another one out in three or 4 months, and we're gonna compare, or you're gonna compare your previous assessment to the new assessment. You got 5 minutes left.
Nice and thick.
City of New Westminster paper.
What?
We printed it at the office. Quick, you only got 3 minutes. Couple more minutes. So we did we passed these around. This is a spiritual self-assessment. There's questions here that after the class, when you have a minute, we want to answer them as honestly as possible, and keep a copy of it in your notebook or somewhere safe, and then in a few months' time we're gonna give you another one, and you'll compare this one to the next one to see how much progress you've made. Okay. I'm Steve, by the way.
Nadine.
Nice to meet you, Nadine. Okay, last minute. You guys need another minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, start wrapping up. If you haven't finished, it's okay. We can give you a couple extra minutes at the end. I hope, so this was meant to be a bit of an eye-opener, difficult questions, and if you were like me, some of the answers were probably a little bit embarrassing, some were a little painful to write, but that's okay. That's, we all start at different places in our lives, in our spiritual growth, our spiritual development, and it doesn't matter where we start as long as we have a goal and a plan to move forward towards that goal. And hopefully throughout the next 2 years, we can use these self-assessments as comparators to where we were and help us and motivate us to move forward in positive direction. And also I have another thing I wanted to hand out. I felt like through my school life, I remembered a lot more when I participated in the lesson as opposed to skipping class and then just downloading the notes from the teacher and reading them afterwards. And when we write things down, it helps us to remember what we talked about. So I'll pass a few of these around. This is kind of some bullet points of today's lesson. A little bit. So keep it open, keep your pens with you, and just fill in what you can as we go, okay? So let's get started. So today we're going to cover 3 additional characteristics of a servant. The first one, which I felt was essential and kind of a backbone to our spiritual lives individually, but even more so when we're serving others, is love of God. And I wanted to read you a short passage from the Gospel according to Matthew. And it says, "But when the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. Then when one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him and saying, 'Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?' And Jesus said to him, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets.'" So to give you a bit of a context, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees for that matter, but the Pharisees in particular, were looking for ways to convict Christ, right? So they had done the research, and the Sadducees were very good at learning and knowing the laws and the scripture. Anybody can wildly guess how many of these laws they'd had kind of referenced prior to asking Christ this question? Sorry? Hundreds, yes, you're in the right direction. Yeah. So they had written down or memorized 613 laws. And they wanted to trump him or wanted to kind of stump him on the question and see what his answer was. So it's interesting that Christ responds with, "Love the Lord your God and your neighbor as yourself." And then at the end of that statement concludes with, "All the other laws hang underneath these 2." The 613 that we were talking about earlier all stem from these 2 laws, or can all be grouped into these 2 laws. Loving your God and loving your neighbor. But how can we accomplish these commandments? Difficult or easy? Difficult. If all the 613 laws fall into these 2 categories, that's not an easy commandment to follow, right? But the Bible gives us the answer to that as well. In John 15:10 it says, "If you keep my commandments, you will abide in me, you abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." So really, at the end of the day, we can't proclaim to say, "God, I love you," and I'm not following what he's asking me to do. Right? There's a direct correlation between those two things. It's like my son. He probably has a natural love for his father because I'm his father. But if every day I'm asking him to do something and he's not doing that something, there's going to be, even though my love for him is unconditional, there's going to be separation, slow and steady separation in our relationship. And he will be slowly stepping away from his father, because by his own choice, by his own free will. The second commandment is actually often misinterpreted. We think that the second commandment, or a lot of us think that the second commandment means you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. Who here thinks that that's what that verse means? Right? But does it? So is my love for myself a gauge to how Christ is asking me to love my neighbor? Or should it be a gauge? What if I don't love myself very much? Does that give me green light not to love those around me? Doesn't work that way, right? So the fathers tell us that the verse actually means like loving our neighbor in the same nature or in the same way that we are loved. And we were created in the, we say this often in Sunday school, and we're created in the what of God. And we won't get into the depth of that, but if we were created in the image and likeness of God, God being love, and we know that he's unconditionally loving us, how then are we expected or asked to love others? The same amount as I love myself, or the same amount that he loves me? Lots of blank stares. Difficult? Same as he loves me, right? I could not be feeling very great about myself. I'm not having a very good hair day, failed an exam, mama's not happy. Lots of negative things in my life which could affect how I feel about myself. But at the end of the day, we're asked to love our neighbor just as Christ loves us, which is unconditional. So a servant's a person who knows God, whose heart's full of his love. Full of his love. And has tasted how good life with him is, and that feeling and that love that he's experienced, he's able to transmit that same love to those that he's serving. Very difficult for us to serve others in that loving way if we haven't experienced that love and that relationship with him. Yes or no? Right? It's tough for me to teach Ellie and Nico to love God, or to even explain to them how much God loves us if I haven't experienced that love with him. But if I've lived that life and I've experienced that love and I've experienced a relationship with him, and I truly, truly feel that relationship and that bond, then it's much easier for me to transmit that to somebody else. Through our life, we show those who we serve the true way to love God and to serve God. Which leads me to my second characteristic. I'll give you a second to write, fill in the blanks. Okay, put your pens down for a second and close your eyes. And try to picture the scene, okay? Close your eyes, just relax. And I'm going to read out loud, so you just close your eyes and picture the scene, okay? The disciples enter the upper room, one by one, and take their places around the table. On the wall hangs a towel, and on the floor sit a pitcher and a basin. Any one of the disciples could volunteer for the job, but no one does. After a few moments, Jesus stands up and removes his outer garment and wraps a servant's girdle around his waist, takes up the basin and kneels before Peter. He unlaces a sandal and gently lifts the foot, places it in the basin, covers it with water, and begins to bathe it, one grimy foot after another. In Jesus' day, washing of the feet was a task reserved not just for servants, but for the lowest of servants. In this case, the one with the towel and the basin is the King of the universe. The hands that shape the stars now wash away filth. The one before whom all nations will one day kneel, now kneels before his disciples. Hours before his death, his own death, Jesus' concern is singular. He wants to teach his disciples to know how much he loves them. He wants to define what it means to be a servant, and he leaves them with the perfect example to follow. He ends that, you guys can open your eyes now. He ends and tells them this: "You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and your teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." What do you guys think about that? Anybody thoughts? No comments? Not? Hi.
He started by himself giving the example, not telling them, oh, Peter, wash the other disciples' feet.
Mm-hmm.
But he kneeled and he did it himself.
Why?
Because actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. If at that point, Christ, he had spent 3.5 years with them, and he did miracles, and he preached, and they saw what no one else saw in a very short period of time. Would it have been okay? Would it have been effective if he would have, at the dinner table, commanded them to go and serve others? Probably, right? Because of what they had seen previously. Imagine they hadn't lived with him, they hadn't spent those 3 years with him, and he was a random person that they met, they invited him for dinner, and he said, I think the 12 of you guys, your job is going to be to go and serve the flock, serve the people. Would that have been effective? Would that have moved them in any way? Random person off the street. Okay, Hadr. See you later. Thanks for eating our lamb. Right? It wouldn't have had the same effect. But even in his 3.5 years, it would have been an easy message to deliver. But the day before he's about to be crucified, he still takes the time and the effort to do what only the servants, or the lowliest of servants, would be asked to do, to give them the visual and the physical example of what is being asked of them. I think, it was a bit dramatic just to I was trying to get the point across, right? But at the same time, as servants, regardless of what you're going to be asked to do or what your strengths are going to be, whether it is to serve in Sunday school or other areas, serving with words, if we haven't served with our hands and our feet and our actions, will not have the same effect at all to those that you're serving. Think about you yourselves and the servants that you have. Think about when the servant that you've spent a year or two with, who you've seen on a week-to-week basis, putting effort, getting a lesson prepared, spending time organizing activities, attending activities, going to activities, calling you, messaging you, picking you up, and the relationship that you have with that servant versus another servant that you may not have had any physical experience with, and that individual asks you to do something or is preaching to you something. What level of impact will one have versus the other? World of a difference, right? So before we start wanting or thinking that, I'm going to spend time preparing this great sermon or this great lesson or talking to the kids, but I haven't built that relationship with, and I haven't put an effort in my actions and the things that I've done with them, not just the things that I do with them, but the things that I do on my own that others see, I have to realize that impact of my service will not be as beneficial and fruitful as it is if I have spent time and effort and my actions speak ahead of the words that I'm saying. So the actions, the effort and all of that is one thing, but the other aspect of our actions is what? Being a role model in everything that we do. And that means, yes, not just the things that are seen, like being a good role model when you walk into church and during Sunday school and during activities where other people are present, but it's the activities that may not be seen, the activities that may be at home, or the activities that may be at a function or an event. The activity that may lead to posts on Facebook or Twitter or the gram. Right? Isn't that the cool term, Terry? Yeah, see?
Nobody calls it that, but like,
Eliandro taught me. Eliandro taught me.
just kidding, I always call it.
Right? Servant has to be a role model in that they serve by actions and not just by words, because the actions have the greatest impact on others. And our key verse for this characteristic is, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works, that they may see your good works, and what? And glorify your Father in heaven. Not that they may see your good works and glorify you. That defeats the purpose. It's that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. St. Paul emphasizes, another verse that I forgot, sorry, I need to mention this one. St. James, or the Epistle of St. James, we read, thus also faith in itself, if it doesn't have works, is dead. That's for your, not just for those that you're serving, but for your own spiritual life. Right? If we say, I'm a good Christian, I believe, I read the Bible, I do my agbeya, but it ends there. The Bible tells us that faith without works is dead. St. Paul emphasizes this in his writings to the Corinthians. He says, we give no offense in anything, that our ministry may not be blamed. We give no offense in anything. That what happens? I'll give you an example. That might be a difficult verse to swallow. I've prepared a lesson on, pick a topic, any topic. No, pick a topic that's more kind of like social. Drugs. Perfect example. I prepared the best talk on drugs. Don't do drugs. It's bad for you. It's bad for your health. It's bad for your brain. It's bad for your children. It's bad. But then you see a post on my Instagram account, on the gram, about me having a great time with the Mary Jane. What's the consequence of that? I'm a hypocrite. The great sermon on Sunday that I talked about and that convinced all of you guys that doing drugs is bad, now means nothing. Is of very little value. It's of no. It's actually opposite of neutral and no value. It is 10 times negative. It's a million negatives.
Now we're probably all gonna do it.
Exactly. So Steve's doing drugs. I might as well.
Now be like Steve.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't we do drugs with Steve?
So that's what that verse is trying to imply. We give no offense in anything, that our ministry may not be blamed. It's actually a very cool verse. I'll read the rest of it, but it's not as applicable, but it's still a very nice verse. We give no offense in anything, that our ministry may not be blamed, but in all things we commend ourselves as ministers of God, in much patience, in tribulations, in needs, in distress, in stripes, in imprisonments, in tumults, in labors, in sleeplessness, in fasting, by purity, by knowledge, by long-suffering, by kindness, by the Holy Spirit, by sincere love, by the word of truth, by the power of God, by the armor of righteousness, on the right hand and on the left. Any comments on that? This is hard. This is not easy. And one word of caution, and maybe Abuna can add to something to this, is if you feel like you're not able to address one particular issue or multiple particular issues, and that topic or that aspect is needed in your class, then I think Abuna would agree that you're probably not the right person to deliver that message. And you need to address that in your own life before you can be able to preach and practice. Like, you're asked to practice what you preach, obviously, right? You can't be talking about something and not be in self-control of that specific issue, right? Abuna, would you like to add anything there?
I agree, but I can add something if you have time. Do you have time?
Yeah, lots of time. 3 minutes.
About the situation, the Lord Jesus insisted to wash the feet of his disciples at the night of the crucifixion. Because in loving the genuine love, the Christian love, is completely different from the human. For example, if you walk in the street and you notice that the homeless need something, somebody falling on the ground, and you will help this person, this is a human love or Christian love? Human. Anyone can do this. Helping the other people that you feel that they need you, and you are much better than those people. This is a human love. But the Christian love, as the Lord Jesus did with his disciples, should be conjugated or related with, joined with humbleness. And this is the secret of the Christian love or service. To serve and help the other people as not they need you, but they are in need of them. That you are not much better than them. I am spiritually and good, and I am raised in the church. I am much better than the other people in the street. So they need my experience, they need my effort, they need my love. No. This is away from the Christian love. I should serve the other people as they are much better than me. As I am the servant and they are the masters. They are not in need in me, but I need them to practice my love. You see what I mean? This is a Christian love, and the Lord Jesus wanted to send this message to every one of us by washing the feet and asking his disciples to do this to each other. We are serving the other people not because we are much better than them or have more experience than them, but because they are much better than us. This will make a great difference in your attitude and in your work. It will be easy to serve the other people. You will not think, is this person deserve my love or not? You will not think in this way. All the people deserve your love. Without any thinking, without any hesitation or taking the time to take a decision. You see what I mean? And this is the secret of this act of the Lord Jesus. As I am the teacher and I am Lord and wash your feet, how much more you should do with each other. This is a message of this. That's all, Steve. I learned many things from Steve.
Thanks, Abuna. Last but not least, self-denial and sacrifice. Huh?
Nothing. I just need to go last page.
You need it? Okay, I'll go back. You good? Here again, Christ provides the ultimate example for us when it comes to sacrifice and self-denial. We read in John, "Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friend." I actually came across something quite interesting. I was hoping Philip would be here so I can double check with him because I was reading it or listening to it in Arabic, so I'm not sure if I'm 100% accurate on this, but it was in reference to when a new pope is enthroned. Two very cool things happen prior to the pope entering the church for the first time the night of his enthronement. Anybody know or is familiar with? Maybe Abuna could correct me if I'm wrong, but two interesting things. One, they lock the church, and there's a caretaker or they call him a steward, which actually is a term referenced in the Bible often. The steward of the church hands him the key, symbolizing, the transfer of responsibility of shepherding the church to the newly enthroned Pope. But the second thing is actually the one that I thought was very cool is the wrong word. Very deep in its symbolism and meaning. So after he opens the door and is about to enter or is entering, the deacons sing a very specific hymn. Anybody know? They sing a hymn called O Monogenes, which is a hymn that we sing on which day? Okay. What day? Good Friday. It's a hymn that we sing on Good Friday. At what hour? Now we're getting really technical. The 6th hour. And what happens at the 6th hour? Jesus dies. Good question. Why do you think they sing that hymn to him as he enters the church?
Because he's leaving his old life behind.
Yeah, a little bit, kind of. It's a symbolism of comparing the symbolism that Christ and the sacrifice that Christ did, dying for his flock and his sheep, to the sacrifice that the Pope is about to make in leading his flock. Now, we're not going to be singing O Monogenes for you guys when you graduate from this program. Huh? The remix? So I pulled up a very cool tool that you guys can use if ever you need to. Tasbaha.org. Have you ever guys been on Tasbaha.org? So Tasbaha.org gives you hymns galore, and you can get the English version of it. So the hymn reads, or a portion of it says, Holy God, who being God, for our sake became man without change. Holy Mighty, who by weakness showed forth what is greater than power. Holy Immortal, who was crucified for our sake and endured death in his flesh, the eternal and immortal. So you're not asked to sacrifice for the same type of sacrifice that a pope is asked to, or Christ was asked to, but you may be asked to shepherd or lead one child or two children, or even at one stage an entire class. And with that responsibility, there will be times, actually there will be many, many times, where self-denial and sacrifice are required in order to shepherd those children properly. Not taking what of yourself? Self-denial, I would categorize it in like when you're putting others ahead of yourself and your own needs and your own wants and your own desires, and you see the needs and wants of those that you're serving, and you put them ahead of yours. There's space on your handout. I wanted to kind of open it up for comments and suggestions about types of sacrifices and self-denials that you can think of that may be part of service.
Selling the food on Sundays.
What's the self-denial or sacrifice of doing that?
Everything.
Be specific.
You're putting your parents first.
Okay.
And you're like putting away all your self-respect.
Hey, Hey, if you're like me, you worked at McDonald's when you were 15, so there's that self-respect is all gone.
2 years.
Me too.
It's not the same.
You'd rather McDonald's than the kitchen?
Yes.
Oh man, this is like heaven compared to McDonald's. Okay, next example. Anybody else? How about I make a couple suggestions and you guys use them as catapults? Yeah. Serving instead of either sleeping in or hanging out with friends. Coming to servants prep on a Friday night. What about making peace with someone even though you don't think you're wrong or you're at fault?
Apologizing first.
That's huge.
That's not. How do you expect people to learn?
Okay, now it's your turn. I've given you 2 examples. Christine.
I feel like this kind of is basically what you said, but it's the time.
The time,
It's
yeah.
Like, if like you need to study, but like on a Friday night, but you know, you gotta come here, which is great. But like, no, I'm saying it's great. I'm just saying like, yeah, just time. Like,
So there's one thing that I've learned in the time that I've been trying to serve is, especially with regards to time commitment, is that any time I've served, especially when I've served knowing that I'm pressed for time, God has made it up to me 1,000-fold and has made things that would generally and has regularly taken me 3 hours to do, surprisingly was done in 30 minutes. Every time, I kid you not, every time I've served God in a crunch, God has given me time somewhere else.
yeah, you sound like my mom.
It'll be the same thing.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like give God a minute, he'll give you
10, yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got any suggestions from that side? You guys are quiet. Usually you talk so much. Tina.
I feel like the time one's just such a big one. Like, I can't top that. Because that's the most valuable thing of time. So, like, you sacrifice your time. That's, like, the biggest act of self-denial. Like,
Yeah.
doing anything you'd rather be doing over coming to church is basically self-denial. Like,
Effort. When you're tired.
Yeah, where you're like, you know, you're still at church, but you could go help, for example, an uncle prepare for his lesson, or
Yeah.
kids, or you could just
Not do anything. What about serving willingly when you don't really feel like it? Or serving before you're even asked? I'll let you guys fill out the rest. It doesn't sound like you got too many examples there. Yes, Christine.
I have one, but it might be bad. I'm thinking like, you know how you said like, you need to like, basically do what you preach.
Practice what you preach, yeah.
Exactly, thank you. I just feel like I guess like another thing is that you kind of just have to like, if there's some things that you do that are bad, but you know, looking at your server, you have to be like a role model. There's like probably some things in your life that you have to change, which is not easy. And I feel like that's a sacrifice. I don't know.
The change is difficult in any scenario, whether you're serving or you're not serving, and you want to change something in your life. I think that the service is going to be a catalyst that's going to help you and motivate you to make those changes that you may not have had without service. But that's something that's, again, with your father of confession, it's important to have that regular discussion with him on specific areas where you should be serving and areas that you need to work on in order for your service to flourish and have positive fruit. So next week, we're going to cover 3, maybe 4. I'm not sure about the last one yet, but for now, we're going to definitely cover humility, sincerity, and maturity. And before I let you go, I wanted to end with the last part of the verse from Matthew that we took earlier. And it says, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on a lampstand, and it gives light to all those who are in the house." So my hope for you guys is that you realize that you are all beacons of light, and that you are using that light in a positive way to help those around you and to shine light to others, and that light coming from your love and relationship with Christ will naturally and fully come out to those that you're serving and that you're spending time with. Glory be to God forever. Amen. Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Anybody? Nobody? No questions? You're really quiet today. Usually it's more dynamic and interactive. Friday night's rough, huh? It's the sacrifice and self-denial. Abuna?
Thank you, Steve. But I read an interesting story about, the whole world commemorate September 11 the last week. And I read the story, and I met and I read today a story about 2 guys, but I don't remember their names. 2 guys during their escape from the floor 86 from the building, going down on the stairs.
They jumped.
And during their escape from the building, they noticed that a lady on wheelchair trying to escape with them. And they didn't hesitate to stop, and they carried both of them, these two guys. They carried the woman with a chair, going with her down to the street. And thank God they saved all of them. So self-denial is simple. I prefer myself, the comfort of myself, or the comfort of the other people. This is the question. My preference is to comfort myself, the benefit of myself, or the benefit of the other people. This is in the simple way. And the servant is a great chance, practical chance, to practice the self-denial, because every Christian, not only the servants, should have self-denial. So simply you can ask yourself, you prefer to take your time for yourself, enjoy your time and your effort and your money, everything in your life for yourself, or help the other people? And this is the question. And this is the situation of the September 11 I just mentioned to you. It will take no time to think. Can you save yourself and leave the other people dying? No. How much more the servant should be? So everyone have a limited time and have many interests and many hobbies in his life or her life. And so in which way I'll spend my life? For myself or for the other people. This is in the simple way, the self-denial. Okay, you see what I mean? Thank you, Steve. You know, Steve is a very humble servant, and he is the only one who allow me to talk during his lectures or to give some comments and so on. I am honestly, I am seriously serious. I can't do this with any other servant, but only with this. Thank you, because he is very humble, very humble.
Self-denial here. So the practical one.